y'all, and welcome to the channel. So I'm way behind on where I should be. This is going to be kind of a journey here. The channel I just wanted to start about 6 months or better ago, and I'm one of those do-it-yourself guys. So I do everything myself. We're remodeling a house. You know, I've got these trailers that I use for ATV riding and motorcycle riding and stuff, and you know, I've pimped those things out, added a bunch of different stuff, and you know, I do all kinds of stuff myself. So I've constantly got a to-do list a mile long, and so I've been recording videos for 6 months during this build, and of course a bunch of delays on the build and in life, and so I've accumulated a whole bunch of videos I've taken, and I've never posted a single one to the channel. So I figure it's about time. I'm sitting here right now with a back injury from working on this and fixing a problem with my septic system all at the same time. That put my back out, and so I'm kind of sitting around, and I thought, you know what, maybe I ought to start posting some videos. So welcome to the channel. This is going to be kind of a journey of how we ended up here. So what we've got here is my 2011 Ram 1500, and this is the sport version. So we've got the, you know, pretty hood snorkels and all that good stuff, and we love this truck. And we got the truck, it's got the Ram boxes, crew cab, the whole bit. I mean, it's loaded to the hilt. The guy that had this thing before, the original owner, put tons of options in it. So we love the truck, had it for 10,000 miles, and boom, cylinder 5 misfire. And long story short, the camshaft, the roller lifter destroyed the camshaft because the bearing seized on the roller lifter and destroyed the camshaft. And I didn't want to risk a truck with 100,000 miles on it being full of metal shavings on the engine, because we had this tick started happening, real bad tick started happening on our trip, towing 6,000 pound trailer from here to Montana to Idaho to St. Anthony's Dunes over there where we went riding, and then back. And as soon as we arrived over in Montana, we had a horrible tick after all those mountain passes and heavy loads and summer heat and all that good stuff. And at first I thought, oh crap, man, I got an exhaust leak, because I had stock intake manifolds. And, you know, it wasn't that. Got back and decided to start checking things out, and of course it wasn't that. And thought, well, you know, I'm going to have to tear into this thing a little bit more and see what's going on a little bit. And, you know, continue to drive it to work and back, because it wasn't horrible. It was just a tick, you know, it was just a bad tick. So, I ended up going and started having a cylinder 5 misfire, and started investigating. Of course, started with all the normal stuff, changed the coil pack, changed the spark plugs, you know, check for things like that, did a compression test and all that good stuff. But when you have the destroyed lifter and the dead camshaft, you can still have good compression in that cylinder. So it's not getting enough air under a load, and when it's working, because your intake valve is only opening just a teeny little bit instead of the full length that it would normally do. And you know, you'll still get good compression, because that's a measure of how much all that volume in the cylinder is compressed. So I still had good compression, so that wasn't the case. You can't figure this problem out by checking the compression. You know, leak down test is going to do the same thing. You know, the valves and the seats and the cylinder walls and the pistons and rings were all still in good shape, so you're not gonna find out that way. So what I ended up doing was taking cylinder 5 is on here, on these Dodges it starts here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that direction. And so cylinder 5 is back here, behind the brake booster, you know, 3 of them back. And so I ended up taking this valve cover off, of course, to do that. I still had the AC and all that. I didn't want to drain that system and go through that whole process and everything else. So I took all this stuff off, went to go remove it. I could not get that valve cover out of this truck bay without pulling the brake booster and all that off. So I ended up pulling all that off and you know, removing some other things, and finally got that cover off. And you'll see in this video the results of that, what I ended up finding out. So really, this channel and this video is going to be about these adventures. You know, I'm Jason. Racing Jason's the channel, and I'm Jason. Racing Jason 77's the channel, and it's going to be about this this Hemi and probably a lot of about some other stuff in life too, because I have as well a Honda TRX ATV with a GSXR or Gixxer 600 engine in it. And I love anything fast, and so, you know, there may be some other adventures, some other things that I do, and there's a lot of other builds that I want to do. I'm a do-it-yourself guy. I do everything myself. I did this whole build myself, except for, you know, things like, you know, tuning. You know, I didn't, I've done tuning on old vehicles, my old ODB1 Chevy Tahoe. I did a roller cam conversion, you know, different intake, different heads, different throttle. I mean, I did a whole bunch of stuff on that and tuned that myself back in the day. But things have changed a lot, and the new tuning on these vehicles is a whole lot more fields, a whole lot more things, and in my opinion, sometimes not the best changes. Actually was a lot easier tuning some of the old stuff than it was this new the new Dodge specifically. I don't like the way they do some of the tables. I don't like the way they do shift points based solely on RPM and throttle and nothing to do with mile per hour. I was able to tune that on my Tahoe and be able to say at exactly what mile an hour I wanted each gear to go. Do not turn on overdrive no matter what until at least 50 mile an hour, things like that. And so I was able to really customize that nice, and it's been a little harder on this. I did start with the Jay Green tune, and he's been helpful with that and very instrumental in getting me to the, you know, the tune initial and getting things going. He went on vacation. I said, you know what, dude, I've got pretty good experience in the past with this. I think I know enough to I can play with here. And so we were doing all the fuel tuning and timing, all that good stuff. So I went in there and I started messing with the shift points. And so I've got this thing pretty dialed in to where I want it to go, to where it's not bogging. You know, it was a point where it was in with the prime additional gear turned on this, so you can bring the 545 RFE transmission to a 6. Whatever the heck it is, 656 or 65, whatever the heck, 65 RFE, I think it is. Basically, you can turn it into that with tuning. You get that additional little tiny gear in there, basically. And, you know, there was times where I was cruising at 30, 35 mile an hour down a flat level road or a slight grade downward, and this thing's in 6th gear. You know, it's in 6th gear, just bogging. And of course, as soon as you hit a teeniest little incline at all or step on the gas a little bit, it's got to downshift through gear after gear after gear, you know, unlock the converter, downshift, downshift, downshift to get to a point where it's actually got some power. And I didn't like that, especially on a big heavy rig. Every time you're coming up to a hill, even at different miles per hour, you know, I've got this thing where it's not going into the upper gears until a little higher. So, you know, I'm not cruising down at 30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour in 6th gear. So I was able to get all that stuff tuned in there and mess with it myself. And while he was on vacation, he's totally back, and he'd totally be willing to help me right now. But I've been playing with it and tweaking stuff and doing things myself. And so once I go back for some final fuel tweaking and checks and little things like that, I'll go back to him and get those things that he's an expert on. But right now I've just been having fun fine-tuning my shifts and different things like that, and you know, getting those where I want those to be. So one of the other annoyances that I had was when I come up to a corner, especially when you're, which we have right here out of my neighborhood, way I usually go, it was the same way in my Tahoe. You go down and you get to a downhill corner, you're decelerating to just a few mile an hour, you turn and it's like an uphill right after that, and you know, that and this and every other vehicle I've pretty much had with an automatic has, you hit that hill and you step back on the gas, and for a second or two it goes and it just bogs to nothing, because it was all the way up in the gears, you're coasting down, and you got to downshift through all those gears to actually get back to first gear, which you should have been in the first place. at that speed to accelerate out of that corner. And that's stupid things like that drive me nuts. And I fixed it on my Tahoe. I was able to fix it on this. So now every time I come into that corner and step on the gas, you actually got to be a little bit careful because of the power that I've got now. And it's immediately in, you know, first gear, raring to go. And I come around that corner and step the gas, man, and it just goes. So it was just with the lightest throttle touch, it's already where I want it to be. So anyways, that's not what this video is about. This video is about the journey and where we're going. This is where I've ended up. There's still some more things to do to this. I still haven't sorted out my intake. I've got just a K&N on here with the stock intake right now. I want to do something. I bought some tubing and some different filters, and what I wanted to do was kind of a ram air thing. We actually took these, which would be a different video, but the snorkels on the Sport hood, you may be able to see that those are open now. So we took a grinder and we went in there and cleaned all those ports out. So that's actually bringing fresh air into the engine now and bringing it into these areas. So kind of like the Mopar one where they seal this off and they force it into here. I may end up going with something like that. I was thinking about doing a dual that comes off of here and seals on these when the hood is down, so you can actually have, so I'd have dual ram air. Thing is, you got to come in here and there's a whole lot of other things you got to seal up because this is all open throughout all of these. So if I build something around here to seal that up, I've got to seal all that too. Otherwise, every single one of these holes, all that air is going to come in and come into the engine bay, or heat and pressure from the engine bay can come up and go into the intake as well. So I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do with that. I may end up going with some other type of intake, you know, maybe a leg maker, maybe the Mopar one that goes up and uses that duct. I haven't decided on that one yet. So right now it's just got the K&N on there and that, but mostly everything else is no longer stock and has been aftermarket, upgraded, what have you, and you know, done a lot to this thing. There's still more to do. So I've got one thing I've got is a it's 3.5 on the front, 2 on the back level kit. I've got some aftermarket A-arms for these things because they've got problems if you put that on there and the ball joint pops out of these things. They're kind of notorious for that. You know, upgraded brakes on this thing. I had brake problems in the past, so I've done rotors in there, drilled slotted rotors and things like that. So once this thing gets lifted up a little bit, it'll look a whole lot better. I don't like a stock height for a truck. I'm stopped short of doing a big lift on this thing at this point, just because I've spent so much money over here that at least the level kit will give me a little bit nicer stance with the right wheels, back spacing. You can just get 35s on these things without rubbing problems. So that's probably the route I'll end up going. And these are the factory 20-inch wheels on these currently. So that'll be continued visual upgrades that'll happen on this, and I've already got some of that. I've got the level kit, and I've already got airbags in the back. So for the trailers, again, that was a huge thing. So I've done a lot of different mods to this thing. Exhaust is all completely aftermarket. The rear diff cover, I did that, upgraded that. I've got core 4x4 arms on here, and these are the types of things that I've got video after video after video on that I've done. Clutch land delete, and you know, we'll be going, and I'll be finally getting some of these things posted and getting them up on the channel for you guys to follow. And hope it's a nice journey, and hope you guys enjoy following along.